On the shoulders of Vegas Wi-Fi, it's InGoal Radio, the podcast, with the creators of InGoal Magazine, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. I'm Darren Millard, down in Las Vegas. We've got you covered all over the goaltending world. Woody and Hutchison heading into the really the interior of goaltending this week. We'll hear all about that, as well as some happenings in and around the goaltending world. Our feature interview is coming up, as well as our gear segment, talking about the EFlex Chesty coming up in just a little bit. But gentlemen, you guys must be excited about where you're headed in a couple of days. Woody?
Never a bad time to go to the Okanagan, up in the interior of British Columbia. It's kind of, there's like, for those that aren't familiar, it's like a little desert area famous for its vineyards and its wineries, and also a place where, I always used to say you can't hit a 9-iron without running into an NHLer. I mean, that might be an exaggeration. I'm not hitting as far as I used to, so maybe might need a 5-wood. But they are everywhere up there. We've spent time up there with Carey Price. Mike Smith is retired there and has been there for a couple of years. Like, there's just goalies and NHL players everywhere. The pro skates are phenomenal. And the week we get to go up and take part in with Net 360, Alpha Hockey Agency run by Ray Petkow and Adam Francilia on the training side come together to put together a week of just really high-end goaltending and goaltending training. And we get to be on the ice so we can bring you some drills and some ideas and some interviews. And that's where we're headed tomorrow.
Hutch, what are you focused on this year?
You know what? It's always just a surprise, Darren, because we hit the ice, and the way it works is they have groups of 2 goaltenders who pair off with 2 coaches at a net, and then they rotate who works with who throughout the week. And we're never quite sure in the first couple of days what they're going to be doing. So for us, it's just really exciting times to bounce from ice sheet to ice sheet, net to net, just to see who's teaching and what they're teaching. Towards the end of the week, we have a bit of a better idea because some of the curriculum sort of recycles as they work with different goaltenders. Other times, they're obviously looking for specific things for the individuals. So I think for us, it's just what do those first couple of days look like and what's new? Because there's always something new. There's always some tricks we want to bring home with us. One thing I am excited about is, for the first time, Kristen Campbell of the Canadian national team is going to be up there at Net 360. So really looking forward to seeing her work. We've been able to spend a little bit of time off ice and see her in the gym, but haven't seen her on the ice up close yet. So I'm pretty excited about that part for sure, Woody.
It's always fun to play and hang out with a person from Brandon, Manitoba, isn't it?
Love everybody from Manitoba. Great part of the world.
Yeah.
Present company included.
Yeah. Hey, I got to mention, I've been working with Sean Burke, Brendan Burke, and Scott Monroe this week at Valley Goaltending. They have a week-long camp in Vegas. I love being back on the ice doing a goalie school with the guys with Valley Goaltending and seeing all the new gear up close. That's been one of the great things about, along with the new teaching techniques and so forth. But some of the slide plates that are on, the Warrior gear that was kind of stands out to you, True Gear the kids have, along with a ton of CCM and Bauer setups.
Thanks for the invite, Darren.
Yep, appreciate it.
You guys were invited. You guys are too busy. That's the issue. I rolled out the red carpet with my house for you guys, and you guys were like, "We're too busy."
Yeah, we just teasing you. You're right. It has been. It's been a crazy summer, and it's about to get crazier. From Net 360, we've got some other things lined up with NHL goaltenders in the interior, potentially stops in Edmonton, and then some time in Montreal at the end of the month. So it's nuts, but we are glad to hear that you're down there on the ice representing in InGoal paraphernalia at Sean Burke's camp. And that must be, I wish we were there. We really wanted to be there. We're going to have to make that happen in one of these subsequent summers because, we had Brandon on the podcast, and we've obviously talked to Sean a couple times over the years. And I'm guessing there's just a ton of teaching and learning and pretty cool experiences going on down there right now.
And Sean's been holding court on a couple of different occasions, just regaling us with stories from his time with the Olympic teams and then to the National Hockey League and his general managership along with goaltending coach, but ran World Championship and Olympic teams. On the subject of goaltending in your neck of the woods, Laurent Brossoit getting his day with the Stanley Cup, and then Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson have back-to-back days with the Vegas Golden Knights. They're in Calgary, and they're going to sort of share their 2 days together as they played for the same minor hockey association. So a big couple of days for Western Canada on the goaltending scene with the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I forgot about the fact that it's all Western Canadians that are part of that celebration. Obviously, Jonathan Quick will be back on the East Coast of the U.S., but I'm going to be there for the public portion of Remember Swaz, covering it for NHL.com, and I have to send some photos along that'll probably be up on our social media, probably by the time people listen to this, actually, because that's tomorrow. And nice to see. I like how Logan and Aiden have combined, so and all three of them, right? Like making sure it's a pretty limited time for these guys that they have with the Cup, and there's things they want to do with their family and their friends and celebrate privately. So to make sure they take a big chunk out of those days to have a public celebration, to bring it back to the arenas or the areas where they played minor hockey, I think that's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that, a small part of it, covering it tomorrow. I think my favorite, though, was Willie Mitchell's day with the Cup up on the northern part of Vancouver Island. I actually got to fly over for that and cover that, and it was pretty neat the way he worked in the community there, and it's always special. I mean, let's be honest, like the Cup's just it brings out people. It's a special trophy, and it makes for a special day, and I'm excited to sort of see it and be part of it on a small scale.
Well, Lauren Brossois will be happy that you're going to attend it instead of me, his day with the Stanley Cup, because he always gets intimidated around me because I've got the abs of steel, and he thinks he's a pretty fit guy. And he walks by me and sees my ripples, and he just feels bad. But you, Woody, you've got more of the dad bod.
We got ripples. We got ripples. They're just big ones. They're big and they're
I got
soft.
ripples. The problem is that they do the wave when I walk. So we're we have no fear. We have no fear of intimidation with LB tomorrow at the Cup Day. And I'm kind of curious to see how he's arriving, because he's got the Cup till the evening of Sunday, and he's a part of this camp up in Kelowna. Net 360 has been a part of it every year, and I believe is a part of it this year. So he's supposed to be on the ice at the rink at 8:00 Monday morning. I have a funny feeling he may be a little late arriving after his day and night with the Cup on Sunday.
Hey, when you guys hear about all these Stanley Cup parties and all the plans the guys have for the day, I don't know about you, but for me, it's a little bit like when the lottery gets up to a really big number and you start thinking to yourself, well, if I won that 70 million, that 100 million, here are the things I'd do with it. When you hear about all these parades, are you guys imagining what you would do if you won the Cup?
Yeah, I kind of have it in my head what I would do. It wouldn't be overly extensive, but a lot of just reflecting on your early days playing the game. Like, I would love to go back to my hometown of Brandon and my own community center and go to that facility and then have it with people that I grew up playing the game with.
Hutch, what's yours?
I always struggle with it because I've been super fortunate to have lived in a whole pile of different places over the years. And for me, I'm always just wondering, how could you bring that Cup to as many people as you'd like to, and to share it with as many organizations as possible? And I've never really solved that problem. I know there's usually a helicopter involved in my mind, but a helicopter can't really get from Vancouver Island to Colorado to Toronto to Montreal and all places in between. So I don't know. We need a little science fiction for my party to work out as I'd like it to. How about you, Woody?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Any party involving me in the Cup would be fiction anyway, so I could do whatever I want. But I was thinking, like, I've never. Here's the truth. Maybe it's because I didn't start till later in life, but I've never thought about it. Like, and I've never been involved with an organization. Although seeing Darren get to lift the Cup after Vegas won it, made me rethink for a moment some of those goals, because there has been conversations in the past with teams about perhaps roles, and I've never really been interested. But it makes you think about it just for that moment. And I guess as a guy who didn't start playing the position until his mid-30s. Like, am I taking it to my Monday night skate that I've been a part of for the last 10 years? A bunch of guys handful of them who played in the NHL, guys who played high level, junior and college, and, some overseas, some guys who didn't, play beyond sort of their minor hockey years, like a real mix. I think that would probably be it. Like, obviously a little family time. But I would probably just bring it to my beer league team. We'd have to do a double dip. I'd have to play two in a day. I'd have to go out with my beer league team, schedule on a day when we had a game, and then the Monday night skate. Those would be the two that I'd want to share it with the most. Those two.
I guess you'd find out which beer leaguers think they actually have a chance to play in the NHL one day. right? Because don't they say in beer league, the guys who get way too serious think they're still going to make the show, even though they're 45. Yeah. So you'd find out at the party which of those guys really think they're going to make it because they wouldn't want to touch it.
Could you imagine too, having that trophy sitting ringside and the potential of being able to win it? Well, you're not going to carry it, but you win it. That would ramp up the intensity level quite a bit at the Monday skate.
The intensity level is already pretty high at that skate. Like guys get into it over offsides and perceived whistles that should have blown.
Woody anyway.
Yeah. So 100%. I think that would be next level. There'd be some disagreements 100% on that night for sure.
The worst thing that can happen in any scrimmage is the first time there's a protest over an offside play. And as soon as that offside play is called, there's 15 of them in a row, because then it becomes okay to call every single close play that was offside. It's okay until it happens. It's a good game. And then first time somebody calls a play offside, ruins the skate. It's done.
Whoever called it usually gets chirped pretty good after the game. I would imagine that it becomes a point of discussion in the locker room. I'm guessing if the Stanley Cup is rinkside and on the line, that discussion would be even more intense. It'd be fun though.
They deserve it. Marty Berger, shout out to Marty, who always had a street hockey game to go with his day with the Stanley Cup. Love that idea of everybody getting together and doing that. We've got some news happening in and around the hockey world. Some arbitration awarding to Jeremy Swayman and Ilya Samsonov, whatever one you want to say. And then a LTIR announcement with Matt Murray. Let's start with the arbitration. Woody.
Yeah, I guess just really interesting. I mean, I didn't know. I thought these teams might want to lock their guys up a little longer term, because the one thing about arbitration, at least in this case, because you can choose a 2-year award. It's a 1-year award for both of these guys. And you're basically just kicking the can down the road for a season, right? Because if Jeremy and Ilya both have similarly great seasons next year, they're looking at raises again, and they're both arbitration eligible again. And actually, in Samsonov's case, he may, top of my head, is he actually going right in? Does this kick him into UFA, or has he got one more year?
I believe it does.
So in Samsonov's case, you get 1 year and then he's straight on the free agent market. So in that case, if you believed in him that much, if you're Toronto, you might have wanted to invest a little bit. And then in Swayman's case, he's going to be right back in the same boat next year. And then, the other guy that avoided arbitration with a 3-year deal and is kind of comparable is Philip Gustafsson. So, Minnesota's a team that looked at their guy and said, hey, we want to invest in him and make sure he's here long term, as opposed to, like I said, kicking that can down the road for a year. So, it's such a volatile position. Anything can happen. Look at Swayman and the team that he was on in Boston. As that partnership he had with Linus Ullmark. Well, it's not the same team anymore, right? Like, no Patrice Bergeron, a first ballot Hall of Famer. David Krejci likely to follow if he hasn't already. I haven't checked the news in the last 24 hours in terms of, hanging them up.
It's coming.
Yeah. So, what does that do in terms of we know how good a goalie he is. That won't change. But what your numbers look like based on the environment in front of you might change. And that's, how you get arbitration awards. That's how you sort of set the rate. So, in both cases, interesting times for what their future holds. I think in Swayman's case, maybe a little surprised that a team didn't offer Cheatham, just because of where Boston was at against the cap, how little they had to spend. For not much more than this and very little in the way of compensation, you may have been able to lock up a really good young goaltender for 3 or 4 years, and Boston may not have been able to match it. It was certainly prime for one of those predatory contract offers from another team, or obviously he would have to accept it. But yeah, there's so much volatility in the position, in the marketplace. The cap could go up, obviously will go up. By how much? Should be a significant amount next year. It's really tough to sort of figure out who the winners and losers are. I guess if the year doesn't go well, the goalies become the losers because there's not another big ticket coming. But I would think, based on how good they are, they both end up winners out of this, because they just get to write another check or have somebody write another check for them next year with a rising cap.
Yeah, the cap going up is the big bonus for both goaltenders in that area of opportunity. you get an award, and then you get the opportunity to really throw it up even more so with an increased salary cap. How many times has a goaltender signed an offer sheet?
Yeah, I don't think
Never?
there's been any.
That's I don't remember.
That's a pretty short list of guys
happening.
who. I mean, what you've got. Kotkaniemi, did Kessler sign an offer sheet? We got the Shea Weber one with Philadelphia from Nashville. I think Kessler did with Philly. There was one involving St. Like, it's a pretty short list that we've got in terms of offer sheets around the league. And you're right. I don't think it's ever involved a goaltender.
Yeah, I go through different players over the years, and nobody stands out. Brendan Shanahan would have been the big one of the big first ones, but Dave Christian signed one. By the way, Christian hockey sticks are back. Saw one this week. It's been relaunched. Remember that? Those Christian hockey. Larry Robinson signed an offer sheet way back when. Guy Lafleur. Like early before they kind of got into this mix of it.
Before I was born?
Pretty much.
Before you were born. Yes, you can. Yeah, you're able to say that actually. Amazingly, you're able to say that, which is impressive. We've got the LTIR with Matt Murray. No real surprise given the injury history, but there is a surprise, Hutch, because he was able to back up during the playoffs. I'm not going to doubt the situation, but it does clear the way for a spot there, and obviously what happened in the Stanley Cup playoffs with the Toronto Maple Leafs for an assumption of that role.
Well, it certainly looks like the door is open for Joseph Woll to remain in Toronto, as I think we all expected would happen this year. I don't know what you can say about the Matt Murray situation. You heard me get a little bit flustered when Mike Smith was able to play in the playoffs and then suddenly was too injured to resume the next season. So I don't understand how all these things work behind closed doors, and it's not for me to speculate, but it does feel unfortunate that someone who has done a spectacular job of pro reads over at InGoalMag.com doesn't look like he's going to be playing this year because of LTIR. So shout out to Matt Murray and thank him for the great work that he's done for us at InGoal. Woody got up a pro read this week that will it publishes on Monday, and the latest. We've got the second in a series of Matt Murray walking us through screen drills, or not drills, but screen scenarios on ice, and just the stuff that he sees and is able to share off the top of his head so quickly and so easily, I think has been invaluable for the goaltenders that are able to see it. I was up at the Eli Wilson goaltending school in Edmonton the week before, guys, and the week before I went and then the week I was there, we showed the first Matt Murray pro read to all the students up there because it matched so well with the curriculum that was going on the ice at that time, both in terms of the teaching tips that Matt was using and the way the video was a great example to really show the guys how it works in practice and in game. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about the LTIR situation, Darren. I just think it's unfortunate he's not playing, but looking forward to more from Kevin and Matt.
I mean, you can add to that list. I mean, just so people know we're not casting doubts about whether these guys are hurt or not. I mean, take a look at Carey Price, like Stanley Cup final with the Montreal Canadiens and then not playing the next year. Shea Weber, same. I mean, we never know what guys are playing through to get to that stage, or in Matt's case, to get to the point where he could be cleared to be the backup or potential be an option for the Leafs in the playoffs last year. I mean, for me, my only thought, or sort of lingering thought, when it comes to Matt having to go on LTIR is, I hope it's not long term. I hope that, as much as that's exactly what LTIR is, I hope he gets a chance to play again, because I think he's done a lot of good things in his game over the past 2 years when he has been healthy, as much as that hasn't been as often as he or the people that employ him would like. There's a lot of changes he's made that I really like, and that I think, we've seen signs of success when he's healthy on the ice because of it. Dating back to the end with Ottawa, there were some times in there, some stretches where he really looked good. And then when you get a chance to sit down with him and run that video, do that video review with him for pro reads, and there's lots more coming. I mean, 9.5 minutes on his first screen breakdown video was incredible. It was like a how to manage screens video. You could just make a DVD and publish it like that. there's so much more coming from him. When you start to understand how well he reads the game and sees the game, you start to realize how big a part of that success or his success that was. You want to see more of it, right? You want to get him. You want him to have the opportunity to continue to play. So my lasting thought is just I hope all the best for Matt in terms of being able to get back on the ice, whether it's with the Leafs or elsewhere, and resume his career, because I enjoyed watching him play. I have a real appreciation for a guy who goes out of his way on his own without being prompted by others to seek change in his game when he recognized how he played, especially that low wide stance wasn't necessarily working as the NHL evolved the way it did his first couple of years, and 2 Stanley Cup wins, by the way. But he recognized the need to change, and I enjoyed watching that process, watching him go through it. I thought he was coming out on the other side of that looking like a really top end, had the ability to be a top end goalie again, and I'd love to see him get the opportunity to show that, even more so having come to this recent appreciation for, like I said, how well he sees and reads and anticipates the game.
If you have not checked out the pro reads with Matt Murray, then do yourself a favor and go down. That is a rabbit hole that will consume you and make you a better goalie coach, a better goaltender, and a better goalie parent. All three. It just makes you understand the position and the situations so incredibly well. The other part is, did any of us think that Marc-Andre Fleury would still be playing when Matt Murray is potentially done when that transaction occurred? That's bizarre how the world goes in our situation. We've got a great Sense Arena feature interview coming up in just a little bit, but this is a presentation of the Hockey Shop, source for sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Our gear segment is the EFlex Chesty, as things continue to come together down with Cam and company at the Hockey Shop. Woody.
Yep. Tried it. We have multiple units being tested by multiple goaltenders. As a matter of fact, I've been asked to bring a unit up to make sure we have one up at Net 360 for more goalies to try. It's been very well received. There are some very unique components to this chest protector. They really, went at it with a different approach, a different mindset, some research from the University of Ottawa tied into this in terms of thermal regulation and keeping you cool as a goaltender, and how that can improve your performance. So for the details on exactly how they did it and how it feels when you put it on and when you play in it, let's talk to Cam. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports, with Cam Matwave and Goalie Utopia. And, latest and greatest.
We're back.
Actually, whoa. Latest. But we have an addition, a surprise to show you.
Don't let the
that
cat
may
out
be
of
the
bag.
quote
Don't
unquote
let the cat out of the
greatest.
bag.
A version of this that is even more special.
Well, let's talk about why this is good too.
Okay.
We should.
EFlex 6 chest protector.
Yes.
We've had it at InGoal. I've got 3 different testers have been in it, giving us lots of feedback. It's been
Ooh.
positive so far.
I've had a chance to wear it myself
Dan
too.
Kevy, the goalie product manager for CCM, on with us to talk about it. Now we've got the visuals to go with it, Cam. Your words. You've worn it. You've tried it. You've played in it. The features that stand out the most.
So let's talk about really quick EFlex 5 versus EFlex 6. So similar overall chest. Body design hasn't changed too much. We have changed up the actual outer fabric that's being used on the chest. It's a lighter weight fabric. Still just as durable. It's helping the chest breathe a little bit more, which is a big highlight of what we're getting into for the differences. In terms of for overall padding density-wise and things like that, not too much has changed in terms of the overall recipe of the chest, because this is a great unit. If you're looking for lightweight mobility, that's what you were going to find in the EFlex 5, and you're going to find the same in the EFlex 6. Now, big difference, though, really has to come to that back plate itself. So let's turn the chest around here.
Ta-da!
So, CCM's AirTech. Tech. It's spelled kind of funny, as we do spell things funny in the goalie world for whatever reason we do.
Mostly because goalies can't spell, but I digress.
Yeah. See, AirTech. This is actually going to suspend the chest protector up on your back. So you're going to create a bit of an air gap actually for air to flow in between the back plate of the chest itself.
Which is also, you can see, quite a holy fabric. Remember
Yes.
those old, you're probably too young for this. Remember those old, Hawaii 1980 shirts that kids used to wear, sort of cut off with all the holes in them?
Anyway.
I'm old. Anyways, it's that
injected molded
fabric, lots of breathability.
Injected molded piece, which is going to help to create that gap. You still get that nice hard back plate, which we are still looking for a bit of that spine protection and things like that too as well. But we're creating more airflow to the chest. The chest is designed to keep you cooler over longer periods of time. That's helping you push the envelope in terms of your performance level at all times by keeping you in optimum temperature as you're playing.
Okay, so did you say we need protection on the back?
Every now and then, yeah, you do.
This is because Cam ends up basically backwards facing the net while guys are lining up to shoot. Again, I digress. The feedback we've had on it so far is that, and the interesting part is a lot of our testers have been using it in the summer, so it's already hotter out, and they're seeing the benefits in terms of the breathability. Interestingly enough, we talked about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, but was out with a goalie coach who was out hiking, and the people that were sort of expert hikers, like really into hiking, had backpacks that were specifically designed to create a gap between the backpack and their back so that it would have some sort of thermo breathability, which is what they've accomplished with this. In terms of the rest of the chest protector, Cam sort of walked you through the similarities from EFlex 5. Some of the elements that I really liked, the elbow pads. I love how the fact that it's almost like a player elbow pad embedded in a goalie arm. You can really lock it in and keep it tight fitting so you're not slipping out of the elbow cap. And I also liked the wrist strap. As odd as a call out as that seems, just a lot more material, both in terms of the attachment and the Velcro side, like both sides of the Velcro.
But it's not
you can
stiff
really get
either.
a nice wrap on there.
Yeah, it's not stiff either too, because it does extend a little bit far, but that is all soft foam, so that shouldn't interfere with any of your glove attachment in terms of your wrist strap or anything.
And we've been testing new gloves, so that sometimes that's the thing, right? You get a stiffer new glove in there, and that can be a bit of it wasn't an issue for us. Adjustability, we sort of see that maintained. Lots of adjustability. And I think it's actually more important with this hard plastic and the rounded shape of it. You need more adjustment in terms of being able to sort of get it up and wrap the way you want.
Exactly.
And sort of find that balance between neck protection and the fit. Because it is a little bit unique feeling the first time you put it on in terms of the way it sits on your back and over your shoulders.
Yes. Another quick small note, which a bit of a change as well. So Velcro on the side, so no more buckle as well. Again, it's always a high point of contention when you have a buckle on the side of a chest because it is a place that can get broken from a shot. So,
removable belly flap. Where do you find it? I'm a non-tuck guy. Are you a tuck guy?
I've always been a tuck guy.
And no problems tucking this in? You like the way it
No
tucks?
problem tucking it in as well. And
Tucker,
remember,
non-tucker, both like the way it fits.
remember that what we called out too in your CCM pants, they have those plastic buckles. That's exactly what this little tab is for. It's not to hold the belt centered. It's actually to clip inside your chest when you tuck it in. But we have something cool.
Okay, so we've gone over the basics here. We've talked about this before. We just wanted to make sure we gave you the visuals on this unit. But Cam has a special surprise, an upgraded version. What do we call it?
EFlex 6 SDC version.
Source for sports.
Source distributors, Canada, if we really want to get technical. But source for sports, yes. Only found.
Exclusive.
Yes, exactly.
So what are the differences?
So,
Walk me through it.
when you're visually looking at the chest, we've gone with that all black kind of colorway, which
Kind of like walking to
stands
the
it out.
dark side.
So what makes this chest different is actually not so much its visuals as it is internals. So we've been able to still get the same thickness of overall foam. However, we're actually using a different, CCM's actually using a different HD foam like throughout the entire chest. What that's creating is actually the same unit that they hand their CHL guys when they're asking for an EFlex 6 chest. So if you're looking for a bit of a beef up, wanting a bit more protection, but not going to increase the weight too much, or the overall general feel of the chest itself, we have an option for you. Price difference as usual because it is an upgraded unit. So you can find that out. You can check us out at www.thehockeyshop.com, or you can give us a call at 604-589-8299. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out. Any one of my staff, including myself, will be able to help you out.
One more thing we forgot to call out, although I guess at this point it's kind of become a staple of CCM units. You got the adjustability in the arms with the Velcro straps,
Yes.
removable, adjustable, all those things.
Yes.
Am I missing anything?
Just one of your teeth. Actually, no, you got that back. We're good. Hey, things are looking up here in InGoal Radio.
CCM EFlex 6 chest protector. It's in store now here at the Hockey Shop, online at thehockeyshop.com. Like Cam said, if you've got any questions, call him, call his staff. They're all goalies. They're experts. They know how to play the position. They know how this is going to fit. They know how it's going to work with your pants, whether you got new or old. They know how to get you sized right. Give them a call. Check it out. CCM EFlex.
The heat, the body temperature, that component of this new EFlex chesty, that's really intriguing as we go down that path. It's a new element of the evolution of that piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I like I guess I brought the anecdote, but I got it from somebody else. But sometimes we hear information from other sports and other activities that resonate in ways we never thought. And sort of that story about how, true sort of, I don't say competitive might not be the right word, but serious hikers have backpacks that purposely create a gap between what's on their back and their actual back so that heat can escape, and how that so clearly ties into the way CCM has sort of built this back piece on this. It makes a lot of sense, right? It just sort of resonates at a different level when you hear it. It's one thing for us to have testers that feel it. It's a whole nother thing to sort of hear that, like, hey, like that's an application that other activities that people do at a high level, have sort of, there's science there, there's an understanding there, and it's employed at those levels. So always good to catch up with Cam at the Hockey Shop. I was thinking, actually, like we should have, where am I taking the cup? And
you're going
that
to the shop?
might be I'm going to the shop. And you know who else should go with the cup to the shop? And I'm going to have to, I doubt this is in the works, but like, yo, LB, like when I see you tomorrow morning at the cup day, like I know he shopped there as a kid. I know as a junior, like he got equipment there from the original Hockey Shop. So what better way than to, on your way back to North End, pop into the Hockey Shop, which is just probably 15 blocks away from where he's going to be celebrating the cup. I think there'd be a lot of synergy there. And it is amazing how many of those guys that are from this area in the Lower Mainland that go on to play at a really high level. Obviously, Brossoit at the top level in the National Hockey League, and now a Stanley Cup champion and his name engraved on the trophy forever, have roots at the Hockey Shop. So there we go. We tie everything into the show today with our friends over at the Hockey Shop, where Stanley Cup champions are equipped.
Where Stanley Cup champions hang out in Cam's crease at the Hockey Shop. Source for Sports Langley, thehockeyshop.com. Sense Arena brings you your feature interview every week on InGoal Radio, the podcast. Got a great conversation coming up with Scott Ratzlaff in just a little bit, as the summer portion of our schedule is an opportunity to really grow your game through the virtual reality area.
It sort of feels right now, as we've seen the calendar flip over to August, like I'm a last minute Christmas shopper. And I don't mean out there to buy things for the game, but what I mean is tryouts are just around the corner for a whole lot of goaltenders. Camps are just around the corner for a whole lot of goaltenders. We're getting the excitement of that season about to happen, and I'm seeing people trying to maybe make up for lost time in some cases, maybe trying to just sort of put the icing on the cake, and others for those who've been working really well and hard over the summer. I was in a rink the other day and I saw a young kid, not a goaltender, but because the rink had some incredible rates for ice just in off times for young kids, mom had rented the rink for her young kid to just get a little bit of extra work in before tryouts. Specifically said that's what it was about. We were in the rink because we were trying to get a little bit of extra work done before camp starts. People are grabbing those last few lessons, those last few opportunities to get a little bit of work in before tryouts. Is there a better way to do that than trying Sense Arena? Because renting the ice will cost you $50, $100, $200, $300 an hour. Getting in a lesson with a goalie coach, getting in another camp, all great things to do if you're able to. Or you could go and grab Sense Arena and get one of their plans, $29 a month or $39 a month, and get access to some incredible training right up to the possibility of facing National Hockey League shooters. So if you are trying to grab that last little bit of time before camp starts, why don't you think about grabbing Sense Arena and giving it a go? In fact, if you have the Oculus headset already, they've got a free trial you can use as well. So you can check it out yourself, get a little bit of practice in over the next week or so, and then decide if it's something to add into your regular training for the year. If you want to grab Sense Arena now, head over to sensearena.com, use the magic code IGM50, and you'll get a little bit of an extra bonus thanks to the work that we do with the folks at Sense Arena.
Nothing's a guarantee, but it's hard to say that anybody's going to be disappointed by the attention that you will offer yourself and exposure you'll offer yourself through Sense Arena. One of those camps that's on the horizon is the Buffalo Sabres training camp. Scott Ratzlaff will be attending. Woody, you had a chance to sit down and chat with him.
Yeah, you know, and I know I say this a lot, but I'm extra excited to have our audience listen to this interview because, like, quite often we go into these not knowing what to expect, and these kids are just so great sharing information, and there's so many little takeaways that anybody can apply, no matter what level you're competing at, whether you're just starting out as a goaltender, whether you're a goalie parent helping out with coaching, or whether you're, a fellow pro. But in this case, I kind of knew this was coming. I had a chance to talk to Scott at the CHL Top Prospects game where I was there working for NHL.com. And he just blew me away with that conversation. The way he studies film, the way he studies other goaltenders, the way he's evolved his game, the details, and the way he pays attention to those. And he just, he basically was a continuation of that conversation, except this time I get to share it with everyone. And there are so many little takeaways in here that, again, like I said, whether you're a young guy or an old guy, just starting in goaltending or doing it forever, even as a coach, there are tidbits here that will help you do whatever you do in the position better. Like I said, he's just such an open book and such a student of the game. His passion shines through in the interview. And it's one of the reasons that I'm pretty confident this won't be the last time we hear from Scott Ratzlaff. I'm looking forward to following his career because, to me, the kids that are that level of student that really, embrace it the way he clearly does, I don't think it's a coincidence that, you mentioned earlier Marc-Andre Fleury and how long he's been in the game. Roberto Luongo, another guy who's in the Hall of Fame where Fleury soon will be. Always open books, willing to embrace new ideas and constantly evolve their game. And even at the tender age of 18, Scott Ratzlaff falls right into that category. So great conversation, and can't wait for everyone else to listen.
Feature interview presented by Sense Arena VR on InGoal Radio, the podcast.
Really excited to welcome to the InGoal Radio podcast, first-time guest, and my hunch is it's going to be the first of many for Scott Ratzlaff of the Seattle Thunderbirds of the Western Hockey League, and now of the Buffalo Sabres after this recent NHL entry draft. A young man that I had the pleasure of talking to for the first time at the CHL Top Prospects game in the spring, and I got to say, I went back over that interview to prep for this one, and I enjoyed it so much. You, my friend, are a student of the position. How much pride do you take in that?
Yeah, I take a lot of pride and appreciate you saying that. It's about being a student and learner of the game because there's now 8 different ways you can play one scenario and each one has different outcomes. So being a student of the game and watching all these videos and all these articles about different ways to play it, like we talked about with Milik and the Panda and overlaps and things like that, it's just different ways to be more effective in the position. So.
Okay, well, I want to get into a bunch of those, and we're going to have to be careful here because you're so good at providing examples, at least based on our last conversation, that I feel we could be here for hours, which I would love, but, you've still got to, train and do all these things as you're preparing for your career. Let's just dial it back a little bit and go to this summer because it's been a whirlwind. You're drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. 10 spots ahead of you. Mentioned Thomas Milik, your teammate at the Seattle Thunderbirds. What was that like? You guys 10 spots apart from each other. And I know for him, it's been a little more of a wait. I know here at InGoal, we've been sort of trying to figure out why the heck he had to wait so long because he's such a hell of a goalie. But just walk us through the experience. What was it like going to the draft, and how cool was it to be drafted so close to him on the floor?
Yeah, I think it was just an unreal experience, and getting the opportunity to go to Nashville and seeing a Fifth of Broadway and all the, restaurants and all the music it was a 3-story building and every single floor had a band playing. So it just kind of that atmosphere was unreal. And even, The atmosphere within the rink was unbelievable. I got to watch the first round, and there were upsets and things like that. And it was really cool to see kind of how it all played out. And then, like you talked about with Milik there, I ended up, getting picked by Buffalo and heading down to the floor and doing a bunch of interviews. And halfway through my interview, one guy mentions that Milik get drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, a couple picks after me. And I was instantly just wanted to go on the phone him, congratulate him. And it's been a journey for him, and having that opportunity to be behind him and learn everything from him has just been a great opportunity. He's a great role model. He's a great person. You'd never be afraid to talk to the guy. He's very approachable, and I think a lot of guys can learn from him. So.
Okay, so I want to get into the combine and the draft and what that experience was like a little bit, but you talked about Thomas and your relationship there, and that was one of the things that jumped out at me from our past conversation was just how much you guys talk about the position. And like you said, different ways of doing it, little nuances here and there. Give me a couple examples. Like what was that conversation like the day after a game? You and him walk in and you're comparing notes on the night before.
Yeah, I think it was just no matter who was playing, if it was him playing and I was on the bench or the vice versa, it was always a way to learn and see what we could analyze from the other team. Maybe the power play does pass a certain way, or maybe they turn or spin. And then working on that in practice, like we had our goalie coach, Brad Goose, that come down once a week per month, and we'd go out of the same end and we would just watch. And then once he would finish his rep, we would kind of go over, hey, how did this feel? How did this feel? Kind of thing. So bouncing off ideas off each other and seeing how we can play the same, but also different in our own way is huge. And it's nice that we are kind of similar sizes. He's not a big 6'6" guy, and I'm a 6 foot guy. It's nice we have that same type of body style, type of how much we feel the net. So it's really nice to kind of compare.
Okay, so let's just give our audience, because not everybody's going to be intimately familiar with your game. Describe it for me, like what you see the strengths, what your focus is, and how it's evolved over the past couple of years, especially since getting to the dub and having that chance to be sharing a crease and learning from and learning with, I guess would be a better way of saying it. A guy like Thomas who's been at the World Juniors and had success at the highest level for the age group.
Yeah, I think I'll just start out with what you mentioned there, the strengths and weaknesses. I think using that height, I'm maybe not the biggest guy. I'm about 6'1". So I think my footwork and lateral agility is one thing that I've valued and worked on throughout the years, is making those east-west plays on my feet instead of sliding. Because if you end up sliding, it opens up top around your shoulders, and maybe you're not as ready for the next play. So let's say a 3-on-2, the guy makes an initial east to west pass covering the blue line. I want to be able to get there on my feet in case he makes another pass to the middle for a high tip and things like that. I want to try and stay on my feet as much as possible and use my agility. And then, like I mentioned, like how similar we were, me and Thomas, and him having that World Junior experience was also something I could take away, and just his kind of composure and poise during the playoffs too. There may be ups and downs, goals that you want to have back, but just his ability to keep things neutral and always have control of the game. That's one thing I think is extremely important as a goaltender, is showing your team that you have things under control and being a goalie that the team wants to play for. So just elaborating on that, let's say you let in a bad goal, like I mentioned about earlier. If you're not showing up your D-man or banging your stick against the post, things like that, showing that maybe I've made a mistake here and there, but it's moving forward and staying neutral is a huge part of the game, and it can help your team stay level-headed and not get down on themselves.
I love that you gave me an example right away, and because I was going to follow up on that. Like, how do you present that to your team? Are there other things body language wise? Do you have to be cognizant of it? Say a guy gets in your lane and your own guy blocks your sight line, and that temptation to, like you said, take a look up, like, hey man, I couldn't see it because of you. Like, you have to sort of be consciously resist that stuff. Is there any other examples you can give us that a young goalie be listening right now and be like, geez, I never thought of that, but maybe they do lose confidence if I present that way after a goal?
Yeah, I think body language is huge, not hanging your head or staring into the roof, kind of things like that. No, palms up is what we call it when you go like this, like nothing you could do about it. So I think one thing that I try to take away from anything is you are 100% responsible for everything that you do. So let's say, your D-man potentially gets in the lane. Well, it's your responsibility to look around because that's going to happen. There's going to be two guys, there's going to be four guys in the lane. And if you say, okay, let's say there's a backdoor option on an initial pass. Well, if you just solely commit to the shot and it goes backdoor, yes, the D-man could have had it, but there's also that responsibility like, hey, maybe I should have a little bit of backflow. If he does pass that, I at least have an opportunity to try and make a save. So I think just being cognizant and being kind of aware that everything you do on the ice is your responsibility and every action you make is the same. So
Palms up. I've never heard it expressed that way. So give me a couple examples of other, sort of body language that would quantify as palms up.
yeah, I think just like I mentioned before, staring up at the ceiling or head down. Maybe I remember this one time I'll even use an example of myself. We were playing in Portland at the Teddy Bear Toss game, and there was 13,000 people watching. And we're up 3-2 with 17 seconds left in the game. I misplay the puck. I give it right to the guy. He goes in and scores on an empty net. And, instead of I made the mistake, I hung my head. I thought the world was coming to an end, and I had my glove in my face, and I was worried, like, oh, what's going to happen next? I made this mistake. But kind of what I use is a 5-second reset. That's what I use. And so the game ends, it's 3-3 going into overtime. And, nerves are high right now. The team is probably like, well, the goalie just threw away our chances. So kind of what I do for 5 seconds is I acknowledge all those types of negative thoughts or mistakes that I've made. Like, so for 5 seconds, I think, okay, gave up a goal with 15 seconds left, 13,000 people watching. I'm going into overtime. And then kind of use it as an inhale, exhale. When those 5 seconds is up, I take a deep breath and it's kind of like pushing those negative thoughts away. So that's one thing that I like to use to reset myself, and one thing that can help you with your body language and staying neutral out. Let's say that's after a goal and just taking that deep breath and moving forward because there's always going to be a next puck, and that's the most important one. So
I love it. I love it. I know there are going to be so many little threads that you're going to give me here that I'm going to want to pull on, and I'm going to have to go back to my notes to bring it back. Skating. You talked about that as an important foundation of your game. They're guys. I know you're a video guy. I know that your access to Instat is not just used to watch your own video the next day. You like to watch goalies all over the place. Is there a guy that jumps out at you that you're studying or watching or, sort of, not to say modeling yourself after, but looking for things so that you can get better at that, so you can be the best goalie on his skates?
yeah, I think there's each different goalie has their pros and cons and sort of how they play certain situations. But one guy that I like to watch is Dustin Wolf and even Devin Levi. And I'm fortunate enough to be picked by Buffalo in the same organization as Devin Levi. So honestly, I see it more as being able to learn from the guy. It's like, yes, it's competition, but I get the opportunity to watch one of the best moving goaltenders up and coming in the National Hockey League. So I think that's a huge asset that I can use and learn from just talking to him. And like I mentioned, Dustin Wolf, he has a great mental game. Not only is his footwork and his strength and balance really well, you can never see him showing up his teammates or showing any sort of emotion that the game is slipping away from him. So, and then I like to watch Marc-Andre Fleury. He's been my favorite goalie since I've grown up, and just his morale and how he looks at the game. He's the type of guy that you look and he always has a smile on his face and he takes the game for what it is. It's never too serious or the end of the world. So I think just taking different pieces of other goalies and seeing, okay, this works, this doesn't kind of thing, and using it to your advantage.
Well, I think now that we've got you set up with an InGoal magazine premium subscription, you're going to have to search up Marc-Andre Fleury and fun, because we've had a few of those conversations with him over the years about how important it is to his game that he's always having fun, and that balance between working and getting better, but still enjoying, because it is a game. What does that look like for you the day after? You told me you are on Instat the day after a game, and you like to look at your own game, and that's part of your process. What does that look like for you? What are you looking for? What are the keys? And just walk me through what that's like.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a learning experience. And, maybe some goalies only watch the goals or think, actually, where did I read this? I just read it somewhere about how Carey Price he was different than other goalies. And goalies after a game, they may think, well, I didn't have my blocker high enough on this one goal, or I was holding my glove in the wrong spot on this goal. But Carey Price was always one to look at the positives in it. And he said, well, I made a good glove save here. I made a good pad save here, reads, things like that. So trying to take a mix of both of those. I watch the goals and think, hey, maybe I could have shoulder checked and seen this guy backdoor with that situation. And then seeing the shots too, saying, hey, I read this guy well. And I had my glove in the right spot, taking up the top corner and things like that. So just trying to stay as open as possible. I'm not waiting to see, I messed up this play, not good, right? So just trying to keep an open mind as much as possible. And then I can also use certain plays like, hey, maybe I got scored on a low to high out front. Then I can take that to practice the next day and ask the coaches in Seattle are great. We always get out 10 minutes early and get a warm up in. So I can go up to Mags or Carts and say, hey, I'd like to work on this drill of low to high shots because I got scored on it yesterday, or 5 hole, or 6 inches off the ice, low blockers type of stuff. So it's really awesome to have that, I guess, privilege for those guys to help out any way they can. So just learning and creating drills that I can help, just like, what's the word? Just disallow those goals from happening again, kind of thing.
Okay, so you take an active role then in your practice. And having said that, in part of that is your goalie coach isn't there on a day in day out basis at that level. Like Brad's not there every day for you guys. So you take ownership of your game in that way, and your teammates. I think there's a good lesson here for kids because I think, to a certain degree, it's okay. Like, obviously the situation has to be right at different levels and different ages, but it's okay to ask for, hey, like, I want to work on this. Can we set up, or can we try this drill so I can work on this? Your teammates might even find value in that too as shooters.
Yeah, and if I can help them in any way as much as possible too, it helps them say, "Hey, watch the goalie's glove hand. If it's angled a certain way, let's say up like this, well, you have more opportunity to shoot low glove, or maybe he brings his stick too far up when he gets close, so you can shoot low blocker kind of thing." So any way that we can do a drill, if you have the right mindset and doing things the proper way, it's a learning experience for everybody. And like you mentioned there, taking responsibility like I talked about before, that goalie coach is not going to be there every day to make sure your feet are set square, close together kind of thing. So trying to stay self-conscious about those certain things that he taught you through that week that he was here, and kind of applying it in your own way.
I've had other goalie coaches say this to me at the highest level, like, we need our goalies to become their own best goalie coach. And it sounds like that's a philosophy you've embraced. Where does it come from? How long have you had that mindset?
I think just growing up, learning it from my parents too. My dad he works for the municipality in and around Burma, and he just kind of always values the passion and doing something with pride. And I can say that about my mom as well as a teacher. And whatever it is, whether it's hockey, whether it's golf, school, things like that, if you're going to do it, if that's your choice, you got to do it with pride and with passion. So, like you talked about there, where to like learning that mindset, it's evolving as you grow up. You get more ice time, you get more opportunity to do things. So every time you step on that ice, whether there's pucks or not, whether it's a skating practice or tons of shots, learning to use the ice you have, and I'd say just making the most of it.
I love it. I love it. You talked a little bit. I heard you in there talking about, keeping your feet under your stance. Like, part of that answer was about, one of the checks you had. Are you doing this? Are you stopping on each play? Are you set and square? Are your feet? And we talked about this a little bit. As you've gone up levels and recognized the need to beat plays on your skates as a foundation, your stance has changed a little bit over the past couple of years. Maybe explain that to our listeners. I feel a little bit like I'm cheating here because we had this past conversation, so I keep referencing it. So we'll just, like, how has it evolved in terms of optimizing your footwork, and how your stance has evolved to do so?
Yeah, I think a big part of the game is awareness and reads and as well patience. So if you get caught too wide legged or too spread out and you lock your edges in, that pass you're going to get beat 9 times out of 10, unless you make a 10 bell save that we all love. But I think just me at the start, I was a very wide stance goaltender and I would always get caught kind of on my heels or behind plays and things like that. And like you said, as the leagues go up, the game gets faster, passes get harder, shots get harder as well. So I've learned to kind of narrow that stance and being able to push off a little bit everywhere. If I can hold my edges just a second longer, I have that ability to get that east-west pass on my feet. And you use, for example, speed skaters. Their initial start is it's kind of a T. It's hard to explain, but their back foot's like this and their front foot is like this. And they're very close together because that's where you get your power from. Because you can't push when your legs are really spread out. So learning to just over the years, like you said, to kind of narrow the stance and also adjusting my gloves accordingly to make sure I can cover low and high spots. So.
Okay, so adjust your gloves accordingly. Share, if you can, if we're not giving away too much, share how you've had to, because like you said, a lot of people, especially taller goalies too, as they start to narrow, their body comes higher off the ice, and there can be this fear of, I can't get to the ice, or my hands, like we've seen the videos, right, guys, too upright, and you're not actually covering the net anymore. You're above the net from a puck perspective. Yeah, exactly. So how did you work through that process in terms of being comfortable with a narrower stance and where your hands are positioned?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of ways to look at it. One thing is like that video, like I watch Insta all the time. That's one thing that I can be looking for in my stance. If he shoots it just above my pad, am I going to get my gloves in front of it? And just taking it, like I love to watch video of me, of other goalies, and just seeing where there's open holes or where I'm covering well. And also being able to, if they get in tight, use my elbows, which is one thing I've been trying to work on this year with my goalie coaches. When they get in tight, I can't be that reactionary. Goose calls it gunslinger, which is kind of like reactionary with the hands, but I can't do that because the shots are just too hard now. I can't react. So when they get into that tight, I use kind of the top of the circles as my reference. Anything from out there that's kill, that's catch to the corner with my gloves. And anything kind of in the dots and below, that's where kind of they call it 3-dimensional goaltending, where you try and get it with your glove. And let's say you don't quite get it, then you can kind of bring that elbow in behind to get pieces of it. So I sometimes, like when they get in tight, my hands kind of stay low so I can get those low ones. But then if they get it up, I can get my elbows. So just learning about when I can use my reactionary athleticism and when I have to kind of take up as much space as possible.
Is that a constant evolution as the level around you improves as well, both in terms of knowing where you are in the net and what part of your body is going to help fill that space and how much time you have? I mean, jumping up to the dub, I'm guessing that, there was less time and more skill, and probably even more so at, say, a development camp with the Sabres.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's an evolving game, and the higher leagues you go, the more you got to be conscious about it because those shooters now, they can pick that corner 9 times out of 10. So making sure that you gain enough depth to where your elbows can reach that spot. You're not giving away too much net by putting your elbow out. So just managing your depth, learning patience, and then kind of adjusting your gloves.
Okay, so we kind of skipping ahead here a little bit, but Sabres camp, what was it like? Seamus Kotick, Mike Bales, two guys that we've had the pleasure of getting to know in the past, two guys we're big fans of. Seamus he's got some old school in him too. Like there's some skating drills that he shared at InGoalMag.com that we're really appreciative of, that had, like going back to the Warren Strelo days, a lot of skating and a lot of unique sort of skating drills. But as a guy who's worked on footwork, you could probably appreciate them. What was the experience like?
Yeah, I think just the overall experience with Seamus was awesome, and his mentality towards the game. And, he acted just as much as a student as I did. When we would talk about things, we would do a drill and I would say, hey, like, I tried this. And he would say, okay, well, why did you do that kind of thing? And then we would kind of bounce ideas off each other. So it wasn't just him teaching me, this is the way you got to do it. This is the most effective. It was, hey, I'm going to set he would set, I'm setting the shooter up here, play it how you would in a game. And then I would go through my drill, I'd go through the motions. Then he would say, okay, yep, that works. You're covering the short side, maybe be conscious of a backdoor kind of option there. So just his openness and willingness to kind of adapt to the way you played net as a goalie instead of you got to do this here, you got to do this here was one thing that I think is just it provides an opportunity for goalies to kind of show their style and, like you said, that flair or old school kind of way. And sometimes you like to throw in maybe like a VH or a pass sack and things like. I'm not saying recommend it, but just that old school kind of whatever feels comfortable, whatever works kind of mentality.
Dude, you just made me feel like ancient because you just referenced a VH, which I was around when it became popular for the first time, and I was already old. You referenced that as old school. But on that note, because we've talked about, Thomas adding, an overlap and a panda style to some of his net play options. Obviously, reverse everybody has. You just mentioned VH. Is it important, do you see, as these shooters start to pre-scout and figure what goalies are doing out, is it important to have all? Is there a benefit to you as a young goalie to having, say, an element of unpredictability in your game?
Yeah, I think like you had talked about there, you're exactly right with the unpredictability and learning to play different options because there is so much video now as a shooter's coming down the wing on the dot lane. And if you're automatically into a reverse VH, he's just sitting there waiting for that spot up inside your ear to put it in. So I think that unpredictability and having those different movements in your toolbox is huge. And being able to play different scenarios different ways. And maybe all he has is a short side shot option. So that VH, that high glove is going to cover it. And then say, hey, maybe that back door is there. I got to overlap or reverse VH depending on how in tight he is to be able to get that back door play. And because one thing I learned too, if when they get into tight and I'm doing a VH and they go across, as soon as I try to put my back leg or the one leg that was on the post, they try and slide a 5-hole. So it all depends on how close they are, what they're looking for, and what's also backdoor. So just like you said, having those different movements in your toolbox and being able to use them in different scenarios is huge.
It's the ultimate game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, really, it is.
Now, how have you seen the game evolve from a shooter's perspective? And I ask that because, man, like for you guys, all the guys you play against probably have all gone to school with skills coaches. Like it wasn't that long ago that we were ahead of the curve as goalies. We had goalie coaches. We worked all summer on our craft, and all they did was bigger, stronger, faster. But man, you're coming into a generation where there's deception, like you said. There's this element of pre-scout, not only looking for what a goalie's going to do, but what move can I make to get him to do what I want? How have you seen that evolve, especially as you moved up, like I said, into the dub and now, into a development camp scenario where, everybody's the cream of the crop?
Yeah, I think in the summertime I skate with the pep guys. So the pep drills, they do it, and some goalies may think, well, that's no fun. It's just shots on the shots. But watching them work through different, I don't know what they're called, like peps, I guess, under overs, pull and drags, things like that, and listening just to the skills coach and how shooters can change the angle. Now as goalies, they use that toe drag so much that we have to watch their bottom hand. It's less about lining up to the puck, but more about their bottom hand and playing their range as shooters. Because if they come down, they have their forehand and they have their range on their backhand as well. So them coming from different angles and opening up or pulling in, there's definitely different ways to deceive your shot.
So you're going to school on the shooters by going to their schools. This is great because this is what a handful. There was a couple guys. Zach Parise was one. His brother was a goalie in the Devils organization at one point. He used to go to goalie school to try and learn what the goalies are doing. Marcus Naslund, who was an exceptional player with the Vancouver Canucks, used to come to goalie camps. He was a drill buster, I got to say, but he would come to goalie camps to try and figure out what goalies were doing. You're going the other way. You're trying to get ahead of the curve by seeing what the skill guys are doing.
Yeah, and it could use the same way in Seattle. So when Goose is there with the shooters and we're doing a kind of a goalie workout, he tells the guys how to score on us or how to manipulate this and that. So we can also be better. He's not just letting the shooters walk into a brick wall and then can't do anything. So like we do that with penalty shots. I'll just use an example. With penalty shots, you want to try and, or shootout even, you want to, as a player, you want to weave as much as possible to try and get goalies off their angle. And maybe you go across and the goalie doesn't quite follow you all the way and you can pick that short side. So an example like that, he doesn't just tell the guys to, do whatever move you can. He tells you guys, hey, try and make them uncomfortable, change speeds, change angles, and things like that. And that just makes us as goalies better because it's one thing that makes us or pushes us outside our comfort zone and helps us, adapt to making sure we're online with our edge work or making sure our gap, you can't just shoot it or skate around us kind of thing. So anything to help the players and then spiraling on to making the goalies better.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a specific here. This is for the kids out there. And if it's too much, you just tell me, because much like when we do pro reads, it might be hard to without video, but much like when we do pro reads, the rule is always, if we're giving away too much, just tell us. We won't do it. But that, you talk about the pep guys, you talk about that sort of that pull or drag into the feet where they change that angle from holding it way outside. And I mean, like it's a significant angle change from holding it out to shooting it off their feet. How do we manage that as goalies? Young guys listening right now, NHL drafted Scott Ratzlaff in the WHL, having all kinds of success. How have you learned to manage those types of shots from those skilled players?
Yeah, I think just kind of going off what I mentioned earlier, following that bottom hand instead of the puck.
Okay.
I think one guys can get puck focused and line up with the puck. And their range, like I talked about, is huge because if you're too locked in on the forehand, they pull that in. That's a big range, like you talked about there, and that's a big angle change.
They can open up the whole. They can open up a significant chunk of the net from puck perspective in that pull.
Yeah, and also guys now are good too. They're strong enough to just kind of release it off. So just trying to follow kind of their range, be in kind of the middle of that, like I talked about the bottom hand. That's kind of the most descriptive thing I can give.
What are you looking for in the bottom hand, if I can ask?
Just lining up. That's where I usually line up with the shooters.
Okay.
So let's say he's a lefty coming on the left wing. He's going to come in and pull. That's going to be a big change. And his bottom hand is usually where it lines up when he shoots because that's just past kind of the front of his skate. So that's where I try to line myself up with instead of the puck.
So instead of being on the puck, instead of being on the middle of him, you're keying on that bottom hand.
Yeah, in and around there.
How much of that, like sort of looking for cues? I mean, again, as you get down the rabbit hole that is InGoal Premium, you're going to find an article from Craig Anderson about how he used to tell the coaches in practice so they knew he wasn't this bad, but he would pick times in practice where he wouldn't watch a puck at all. He would just look at the hands, the hips, the shoulders. He was looking for visual cues so he could teach himself to read a release. Are there any other guidelines or things that have helped you over the years learning to read these increasingly dynamic releases?
Yeah, I think just one thing that you can use as like, I would just more use this as an example in a shooter. The easiest like save or type of shot to stop is one where the player shows no shot threat. And that's, I'm using my hands kind of in the middle. So let's say their stick is in the middle and they're just stick handling like this back and forth.
Right.
That's the easiest thing to stop because there is no elusiveness. He can go like this and shoot, but you're already on it. So kind of, I guess I'm just talking more about a shooter's perspective, but always kind of being that open to shoot is what makes it hard on goaltenders. So reading that release of, can I buy time if he transfers to the middle? Can I buy time to, let's say, put my feet closer together? Because you want to, let's say the guy's kind of coming across the slot there on the rural road. Well, it's hard to kind of get those feet close together in case he shoots while you're adjusting. So that's where you kind of get separated. But how can I use, let's say he's coming in like that and he goes to here. That's kind of a cue to recollect yourself. Anytime you can recollect yourself during a breakaway or shootout or things like that is one where then you open up more options to slide or shuffle over. So just these cues of when they have their ability to shoot, when their chest is facing forward or kind of angled with the shoulders. things like that, and when being able to recollect yourself.
I love it. I love it. I feel like we're going to have to go through this interview and write about 10 different articles on the advice that Scott Ratzlaff has shared with us today. A couple more. I just wanted to sort of go back. We usually start the interviews here sometimes to sort of get a feel for guys, but I'm curious. You're in Irma, Alberta, and grew up in that area.
Yeah, grew up in Irma.
Where'd the passion start from? How did Scott Ratzlaff fall in love with goaltending?
Oh, geez. Well, at first I didn't like hockey. I wanted to be the Zamboni driver, so that we'll start with that. But we have an outdoor rink right by the house, and the parents just kind of threw me on there and walked away, and it was my job to try and get off. So just learned to eventually like it. And we have a lot of goalies in our family. My uncle, my cousin, my grandpa on my dad's side are all goalies, and just the value of the position. I think I always wanted to be on the ice 24/7. I never wanted to change, never wanted to be on the bench sitting. It was in the action all the time. So I think that's a big part of it, and being kind of that crucial role of the goalie. And guys think, well, it's a vital role because if you make a mistake, it's on the scoreboard. If a forward makes the mistake, they go through 5 different guys to redeem themselves, kind of thing. So just that crucial play, and like I mentioned, don't want to get off the ice. So
Okay, that mentality, and we hear it from a lot of guys in terms of embracing the pressure that comes with that comes with being that last line of defense, the one who, if you do make a mistake, it shows up on the scoreboard and the red light, and the 13,000 fans at a teddy bear toss game, right? In the WHL,
screaming your name.
Yeah, having to embrace that. Do you think that's is it innate to some extent, or does it become inherent as you sort of work your way up in the position? Are there times you clearly are a student of the position, and a big part of the position is between the ears so much as between the pipes? Are there things, have you worked with different sports psychologists or different people to sort of cultivate embracing all of those pressure points?
Yeah, and definitely pressure is sometimes a good thing. I think I remember Mike Babcock saying something, pressure means you got a chance. That was kind of the quote that I think I remember him saying one time, is how do you handle pressure? And he said, like I mentioned, that means you got a chance. That means you're meant to be here. That's kind of the thing. You're here for a reason, and you've gotten this far. So that's one thing. Pressure is good because sometimes it makes you a step above. You put you in a different gear, different zone. And it's all about managing, because there's going to be pressure whether you like it or not. I don't know a single guy that could walk into a playoff final game 7 that would just be nonchalant and this is an everyday thing. Pressure is going to happen, and it's whether or not you think we've lost like no confidence. Oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And you're shaking before you even can put your skates on. So, and then there's the opposite to that. You say, okay, we've gotten this far. I'm here for a reason. How can I use that pressure to get me in the zone? I'm ready for this kind of thing. So there's always going to be pressure, but it's how you can handle it is what differs guys.
Love it. I love it. Okay, what's the rest of the summer look like? You went from combine to draft to dev camp. You're back home. What's the focus? What does the rest of the summer look like for you? Do you go back to Sabres rookie camp before back to Seattle? Is that something you're looking forward to as well?
So kind of just like with the season right now is just getting stronger. I think that's one thing that everyone can improve on is building the core, because balance is a huge part about goaltending. So that's one thing I'm focusing on, getting stronger legs, making sure that I can get places faster with stronger legs. And then like you talked about, I go to Seattle on the 20th, I believe. And I'm doing a little kids camp week there, helping out some goalies. So that's always fun. It's always nice to be a goalie coach and shoot pucks at goalies, because I love shooting pucks. So it's nice to shoot on some goalies, do a little breakaways here and there and have fun with them. And then I think on the 12th, I fly down to Buffalo to do the prospects tournament, which is in Buffalo. And we play Montreal, Pittsburgh, and New Jersey during that tournament. And that's the 15th to 18th. And then main camp is the 21st. So that we'll see how that all plays out. And then it's back to Seattle for the season. And I'm excited. We're losing a couple guys, but I think the core we got is just, it's young and they're eager. So it's going to be a fun season for sure.
Oh, well, I look forward to following it. Hopefully, getting to see you in person when you come up to Vancouver to play the Giants. Look forward to continuing these conversations over the years because we've had two now, one on the record and one just you and me, and I have thoroughly enjoyed them both. I know our audience is going to enjoy this one. Scott, thanks for the time. Thanks for being so open with the conversation. There are a lot of young goalies and parents of goalies that are going to listen to this, and there's going to be a bunch of takeaways that, much like you as a student of the game, they're going to go out and they're going to try them. May not use all of them, but there's going to be enough. There's going to be one or two things that everybody takes out of this that's going to make them a better goalie. And for that, we thank you sincerely.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me out on here. And like you said, it's seeing what sticks, and you can try things over and over and seeing what works with you and seeing what doesn't makes you your own person, makes you have your own flair. So the only thing is I would recommend is just have some fun, enjoy the game for what it is, and just go out there, work hard, have fun.
Love it. So you're all set for that goalie camp with the little guys.
Yeah, that's going to be my quote. Go out there, have fun, work hard.
Good stuff. Thanks again, Scott.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
What a journey and what an incredible season. He was drafted ahead of his partner, who went to the Memorial Cup as a tandem, Thomas Milic, drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. Just an intriguing setup between those two as goaltenders, rooting each other, helping each other on, and now going in different directions, Woody.
Yeah, and I mean, 10 spots apart, despite the fact that Thomas is 2 years older and has a World Junior Championship to his name. So what's the difference? It's an inch, right? Like, it's probably the inch. It's Thomas Milic at 6 foot and Scott Ratzlaff at 6'1". I mean, obviously there's other elements too. But I've, and this is just me saying I'm surprised that Thomas Milic was still eligible to be drafted. I'm surprised he didn't get taken earlier. I think you can look at a lot of guys who were in the same boat. I mean, Dustin Wolf is a 2-time American Hockey League goalie of the year in his first 2 seasons and an AHL MVP. And he was one of the last goalies picked in his draft year, right? So we continue to see goalies that maybe aren't the biggest, have success, get overlooked. And I would not be at all surprised to find out that a few years from now, we're having the same conversation, maybe not to the back-to-back AHL, like what Dustin has done is special, but having the same conversation about teams, having overlooked Thomas Milic, and to a degree, maybe not the same degree because he went in his first draft eligible year, Scott Ratzlaff as well.
Awesome stuff. Amazing little bit of a peek behind the curtain with Scott today. And Net 360 camp is coming up this week. You guys enjoy yourself, safe travels, and can't wait for all the little bit of tidbits that you're able to uncover with this high level, one of the best high level impact goaltender schools that you're able to have access to.
Make sure you go to InGoalMag.com. We'll be trying to get them up as fast as we can. Sometimes we try and slip in a few quick hits while we're there, as much as we're grinding on a day-to-day basis. It's also a chance we get to see our friend James Wendland, who brought us 5 damn things on the hips, and we've got plans to meet up with him in Kelowna and some of the athletes he's working with to come up with a few more 5 damn things that'll help you train better, stay in better shape, be better prepared to stay healthy and on the ice and become a better goaltender. So I can't wait for all of that from Kelowna this week. Plus time, I get to spend time with Hutch. Like, that's the best.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask Hutch, what's your 5 damn things about Kevin Woodley that you come up with right now off the top of your head?
I don't know, but I've said damn a whole lot. I'll tell you that.
We are going to break down the dam and get out of here. As we say, thanks to Scott Ratzlaff, thanks to Cam over at the Hockey Shop, thanks to you for listening as we ride the coattails of David Hutchison and and Kevin Woodley on InGoal Radio, the podcast.
Damn it, Woodley.